Okay, it's time to color me clueless. But I started that way, so actually let's clue you in about wine's color. For full disclosure, I actually don't put a whole lot of stock into describing a wine's color. I don't think it gives you very many clues as the quality of the wine. So you can have a deep black as night, dark red wine that's terrible, and a light straw colored wine that's fantastic. So color is merely one of these other tools that we use to describe and talk to each other and converse and have the dialectic about all things wine, and that's cool. Wine's color can actually tip us off to a few things. Certain colors do indicate if a wine might be fuller bodied and more tannic or on the lighter side. And probably most importantly, for wine novices, wine's color can sometimes be an indicator of flaws. And I will show you just an example or two of that. But let's talk about how color gets into wine, and that'll help you understand the wines that are out there and the wine choices that you might want to make. And let's start in the vineyard. All wine starts as grapes. And grapes come in a great variety of color from different parts of the planet, different subspecies of Vitis vinifera, that is the main wine grape, come in different colors. So you have green or white grapes, red grapes, and even black, purple, all the way dark grapes. And there's every shade in between. Now, for full disclosure as well, these are table grapes. These are not wine grapes, because most wine grapes actually come or are a bit smaller, berry shape, and again come in a great variety of color depending on if it's Chardonnay or Cabernet Sauvignon or Malbec. So just general categories, even with wine grapes, green or white, some sort of red, and then black or dark. Now what I want you to know about how wine is made starts here in the vineyard, because all these grapes, all the grapes you've ever had in the grocery store, but also grapes from the wine vineyards, all juice is clear. So when you actually, and you should try this in the grocery store if you think this is any trickery of hand I'm getting ready to show you. But here I've got a green or white grape, a red, and then a black grape. And I'm going to squeeze them all out and see if we can zoom in to the actual plate. Look at that. The grape juice from a white grape is perfectly clear. Surprise, surprise. Let's get darker. Zoom into this if you can, and I'm squeezing. Oh, I'm not getting much juice out of this one. Hey, look, it's a red grape, and it's kind of clear, too. Although now that I'm smashing it, you see a little bit of color. Well, how about this really dark one? Let's see if we get it. Squeeze. Hey, look at that. Crystal clear juice coming out of it, huh? So it doesn't really matter what the grape is, what the skin color is. All juice starts as clear. Watch what I'm doing now as I'm smashing this up. Oh, look, it's starting to turn pink. Oh, and if I smash this down here, oh, now look at that. I don't know if you can see that, but the juice is just starting to turn pink there. And I'll let that swish around for a little bit while I talk. And the point here is that if all juice is clear and wine is made out of grape juice, how the hell does wine get color? Okay, we'll come back to that after it soaks for a little bit. The color comes from the actual skin of the grape. So you squeeze the grape out to get the grape juice, because we need that sugar water, which is going to ferment and turn into alcohol. But if you want to add color to your wine, then you have to let the juice come in contact with the grape skins for extended periods of time. That's entirely up to the winemaker, okay? He can do it for a little bit of time, let the skins float around in the juice, because the color of the skins and actually tannins and some other chemicals from the skins and the stems and the seeds will actually get into that grape juice, which is clear, and then start to color or taint it up with some tannins, some colors, and some other things. You can do that for a little bit and get a little bit of color extraction. You can do it for the whole time you're making your wine. Just leave all the smashed up skins just stuck down in there, mixing up with the fluid while it's fermenting, and you will get full or maximum color extraction, and that's how you make wines darker and darker and darker. Does that start to make sense? Just for a side note here for you to understand the process, you could actually make a white wine out of any of these grapes, whether the grape is originally green, white, black, or red. You can make white wine out of it. You simply squeeze out the juice, don't get the skins out of the way, ferment it out into a wine. So even though the skins, say of this grape, let's pretend this is Zinfandel, right? If I just squeezed all the juice out and made it into wine, it would be clear. Or I could lay a little bit of skin content and it would be pink. And that's how you get Zinfandel, I pointed out in particular, that you can have two different types of Zinfandel. Pink Zinfandel, which has had some exposure to its skins, because Zinfandel is actually really black, dark berry, right? So you just let it come in contact a little bit with the skins to get some color out. That's how you get pink wine. But the same grape, which is dark black, you can leave for extended periods of time, let that juice just soak up all the color it can out of those skins, and it will turn black as night. So Zinfandel, when you see this white Zinfandel versus, I guess, regular or red Zinfandel, it's the same grape. It could be from the same vineyard. It's all about the processing. How much time did they let the skins hang out on the juice when they were making the wine or fermenting it into wine? That's it. You can actually make it crystal clear if you really wanted to. I've never seen a crystal clear white Zinfandel. Or you can make it black as night. Zinfandel is really an awesome example because it can really go either way. Two wildly different styles made from the same grape, and it could be from the same producer. Some producers do a white and red Zinfandel simultaneously from the same grapes in the same vineyard. Fascinating, all right? Now, having said that, let's get the grapes out of the way. What does it mean when we see all these colors? Well, now I'm showing you the variation in colors, and we can talk a little bit more about it. Obviously, white grapes made into white wine, and you can't make a red wine out of a white grape. So Chardonnay is a white grape, or green grape, whatever you can call it. Sauvignon Blanc, it's a white or green grape. You can't make red wine out of that. Again, because the color comes from the skin. They start white, the wine has to be white, unless you're gonna add in food coloring or something, I guess. So what you have is, okay, green or white grapes made into white wine. Most rosés, we call them, pinky or rosé wines, are darker grapes that have been allowed to come into skin contact for a little bit with the juice, just a little bit, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, maybe half a day, to extract just a little bit of color to make them pink. And then you have 3 other full-on red wines, and those are wines actually made from red grapes of varying color. And I don't know that this will even be able to be picked up on the camera, but certain grapes actually are darker than others. Surprise, surprise. Pinot Noir is a classically lighter skinned grape, so you would expect Pinot Noir's color, regardless of the time that you allowed the skin to be on the grapes, Pinot Noir's color would be lighter than, say, a Zinfandel or a Cabernet Sauvignon, much darker skinned berries. And again, I don't know if you can even detect that from the camera, but we would expect Pinot Noirs to be slightly lighter. Merlot's a darker grape. You would expect the wine to be darker because it's a darker skinned grape. Zinfandel, again, is black as night. We could expect that to be a darker wine if the winemaker allows for that extended time on the skins. The thing is, you can actually have great variation even within the whites and reds categories for different manufacturing steps that I'm really not going to talk about here because I don't think they're that important. But just to give you kind of an example that you can look at, wow, these are 2 white wines made from white grapes, but boy, they're radically different colors. And that's because this is a much lighter skinned grape that this one's made from, and they haven't really messed with it or put it in oak or anything else that would add any color. Heck, it's almost clear, okay? And again, the original juice is clear. Now, this is a white wine, a Pinot Grigio, most of you are familiar with. It's a white grape, okay? It's a white grape that's made into a white wine, but if you allow the wine to hang out in a barrel for any given time, or if you allow for what we call malolactic fermentation or other steps the winemaker can do that can actually add richness and color to the finished wine. So great variation, although I even hesitated to tell you about this because you don't know that. You don't know exactly the way that the winemaker made it, or maybe the grapes for this particular crop are just physically darker. Maybe they allowed for a little bit of contact with a darker skinned grape, even though it's still a white grape, to get a little bit more color. Or maybe this came from a barrel, or the color came from a barrel, or maybe it came from a certain process they did. There is great variation within the whites, and of course there's great variation within the reds too, and the variation with the reds is mostly about, is it a light skinned grape like Pinot Noir versus a dark skinned grape like Zinfandel. Now, to kind of finish up, I've got a whole slew of colored wines here, and some of these now I've already shown you. And you can see that we can now actually detect some things. We can say some things about the color. We can say some things about the wine based on the color. Because this one's so crystal clear and light, I would say, yeah, this is going to be pretty light wine. Probably fruity, probably floral, maybe even acidic, very thin, all right? It's a guess. It may not be, but it's A logical guess. This one, that's a white wine, but it does have some color, so it's probably got a little bit more body, a little bit more something going on. But again, this is a guess. This is still a light wine, all right? Not even in color, but it's light in body. Now we're getting into some pinkies. Okay, these obviously are made from red grapes, and so you see the variation in color just within these reds, or maybe my blue background is throwing it off. But the color variation of all these pink wines becomes quite obvious, and you're like, oh, well, something's going on here, and the something going on is the winemaker only allowed for this wine to have minimal contact with the skins, just enough to give it a little color. So it's a red grape. I don't even know what the grape is. It doesn't matter. This is made from a red grape that was allowed to hang out in the juice and got some color, but not much. This one, yeah, it's darker. That's been allowed some color and a little bit more. Actually, this is a better one. These are both rosés from France. This one's way darker in color. Now, because they're made from red grapes, they will take on some of the flavor characteristics of those red grapes. So rosés are fantastic, and again, pink or rosé wines are fantastic because they have the lightness of a white wine, lightness in terms of body and probably style, but they also have some of the flavors of the red grapes they're made from. So they're a nice bridge between full-on light and full-on, full-bodied red wines. Now I'll throw back in the one in the middle. Thing I definitely want you to know, to be a smart shopper. This pinky wine called White Zinfandel, right, is from California. California kind of invented this style. These will be sweet. If you see a pink wine from California, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be sweet. Always ask your store rep what it is. But I do want you to know a lot of people don't like blush wines. They're called from California, or rosés. There's what they call them in France. A lot of people don't like them because they associate all pink wines with this style. And it's like, no, actually pink wines from France are all the way dry. They're more like full-on white, dry white wines, crisp with some elements of the red grapes that they're comprised from. But great picnic wines, but full-on dry. So there is some, again, the color can give you some indications of flavor and body, but even with something like this is kind of a niche thing. You just have to kind of know. Pink from America usually means sweet. Pink from France or pink from Europe typically means dry white wine. That's awesome. I actually like them all, but this one's definitely for dessert. Okay, on to the reds. This is where it gets more tricky because, again, reds are reds. So you can't really see much in the bottle. Most of them are in darker color. In the glass, you'll see people wax poetic about this wine is black as night, or this wine is orange tints and juicy plum colors. You can describe red wines in a million different ways, any way you want. Again, it's not any great indication of style. It's not a great indication of quality. But we can actually say a few things. Because this is a lighter red, say this one's twice as dark as this one, I would expect this one to be fuller bodied, for sure. Probably a deeper complexity, although that's not assured. Certainly more tannic, so probably more dry mouthfeel. So just based on color, I could not tell you what the grapes are that are in this glass. Any of these 3 glasses, it's 3 different wines. Can't really tell you much about the style, but I can say, well, just based on color, this one's lighter in color, it's probably lighter in body. This one's darker in color, it's probably darker, more full body. Again, even that's not assured. So, you can describe all you like, but just keep in mind, if someone tries to tell you that this wine is fantastic because of this color, just laugh at them and say, yeah, sure. You can get crappy, beautiful colored wine, and inversely, some wines are like, there's nothing really descriptive about this color, it's pretty bland, and they'd be fantastic. Wine's all about the aromas and flavors, not so much about the colors, unless it's flawed. And that's why I wanted to show you a couple of other things that you probably can use color to detect. And this one, I'll put up a white towel, maybe this will help, right? This is the exact same bottle of wine. I don't know if you can tell from the camera. It's the same bottle of wine on the same shelf in a wine store. Something going on with the color here. And I have not opened these bottles. I can't tell you. They might possibly both be delightful. But given it's the exact same wine from the exact same producer in the exact same year, probably something's up. Probably one of them has been cooked, probably this darker one. It's probably possibly been oxidized. Any number of things could be going on here, but something's definitely amiss with color being this great of a variation in the same bottles, okay? Because the other thing that you can detect about wines, particularly whites, is that if you ever get a white wine and it's this color, not cool. If it's supposed to be a white wine and it's brown, something's up. And that something up is that it's flawed, it's been baked, it's been oxidized, it's leaked, oxygen has gotten in, it's probably spoiled. All wines in time change in color. White wines, as they get older, start to take on hints of more golden hues, and then if they go all the way to brown. Red wines actually start much darker. A young red wine may be huge, bold, black, and you can expect it to be big and tannic and crazy. And over time, it will actually chill. So if you kept that same bottle of, let's say, Bordeaux, big, huge Cabernet Sauvignon Bordeaux that just got released, it'll be huge, black, dark. Over time, say you hold on to it for 10, 15 years, it'll actually mellow out color-wise even. And that is to be expected. That's not necessarily a flaw. So it'll get lighter in color as stuff falls out of suspension, as the wine chemically evolves, and it will actually get lighter in color. And so when you assess an older wine, you might even see people do this, so they look at it and say like, oh, it's much lighter than it used to be, or this is a really light color for a Cabernet Sauvignon. Oh, and I detect just hints of brown around the edges of the wine as I'm looking, and that's not necessarily a bad feature, but that's what happens to the color in wines while they age. So that's really it with color. You can detect some things about age, you can detect some things about flaws, you can make general detections about body, lightness or heaviness of the body. But other than that, it's not going to tell you a whole heck of a lot, because every single one of these wines started as absolutely clear grape juice that then was modified during the fermentation process to make either a light-colored wine or a rosé, middle-ground wine, or a full-on dark red wine. And increasingly in today's world, just to reinforce this as one final factoid, a lot of folks are starting to experiment with making white wines out of red grapes, which is entirely possible. Just the same way you can make a white Zinfandel or a pink Zinfandel or a red Zinfandel out of the same grapes, you can make a white Merlot. And this is from Ticino in Switzerland. They've had fantastic success with taking the red Merlot grape, squeezing out the juice, and just making a white wine out of it. And this other one is a sparkling Malbec from California. Malbec, that huge, big, dark-colored red wine that we identify with Argentina. Somebody in California is growing it, squeezing it out, getting rid of the skins, and making it into a clear as day white sparkling wine. I've not had it, but now I'm curious, and I want to try it. To summarize all this, you can, because of the process of making wine, you can make a white wine out of any grape. Any. As we've just seen. You can make a white wine out of Malbec. You can make a white Cabernet Sauvignon if you want. But you can only make a red wine out of red grapes. And now you understand why. And you can only get a black as night wine out of really black grapes that have been soaked in that juice for a very long time. That's the basic process of how wines get color. Just touching here and there about how you would describe them and the importance of describing them, of which I don't think is a lot, unless you have some flaws or some aging issues that you're detecting while you're looking at the color of wine. But let's move on now to actually getting it in our mouth and describing the way that it feels and taste and everything else.